Welcome back to another weekly outlook video where I go over the same four pairs using the same strategy I go over every single week. And those pairs are AC, EU, gold, and GJ. Now, sometimes I do go over the dollar index to correlate with the dollar in gold and Euro USD. With that being said, as always, we're going to start off with the top-down analysis. So let's get right into it. We're going to start off with AC and work our way down. Okay, so on AC, so you can see that we've already hit this supply. And for those of you that are new, I am a trader that trades supply and demand, smart money concepts. So that's my main way of trading. Now I do incorporate key levels such as imbalances and then also support and resistance areas. That way it helps me identify liquidity areas, and I look for sweeps, and then I look to use that to my advantage. With that being said, let's continue on with the analysis, starting off in the weekly. So if we look at the structure on the weekly, we have a swing high, swing low, now lower high, lower low. Now we pull back because this is a retracement into my supply. So now I'm expecting a push or an impulse to this low, which would make a new lower low. So that would give me my new weekly lower low point. So how did the weekly close last week? We closed bearish, not engulfing. So this candle still is in control, telling me we could go up higher, but it doesn't necessarily have to. So we're going to go down now into the daily, and we're going to see what's going to happen in there and what it already did there. So these are my daily points, are these red ones, red structure. So we have lower low, lower high, lower low, and we did make a higher high on here. Now I'm not expecting it as of now to make a higher high to break structure of this weekly structure, but right now we're going to see what's happening in this candle, the weekly candle from last week. Okay, so I am currently in this sell. I'm up about 3% or so. I am targeting down here. I wanted to sweep this low is my target, and then this a major resistance area that we should have some kind of reaction here before going lower, if we're going to go lower down here, and then so on and so forth. We'll start heading towards over here, but it's always the dominoes effect. So you have to wait for one thing to happen before you start to let it go to that your take profit. So since my take profits over here, I have levels that I want to break and that I want to be very careful around. For example, here at this support and resistance area, we're most likely going to have a reaction here. Now if we get a lot of buying pressure here, so right here I'll be up like around 1 to 5, 1 to 6. So I'll consider getting out, like if it's going to pull back and I'm going to go into, like if I'm up 5% and I'm going to go lose 3% with the retracement from the reaction that it has here, then I'd rather just secure and look for another trade. But if it just continues going bearish and if we have a small reactions, then yes, if we just build a little bit of liquidity so we get buying pressure in these areas. So you know, this is the main difference that I would look for. So if it's buying like this, they'd be going up in waves and not coming up too strong, because if it's coming up too strong, then that tells me, hey, we can have a bigger reaction. So we start having, like, you know, this is more of a lot more of a bullish example that I'm providing here than this, then I would consider getting out, you know. So you have to be very careful with how you manage that. So this, I have an alert here. I want to be very careful with that area. I'll consider getting out there. So always on the way to my take profit, I always just manage it very carefully and try to mitigate that risk. That way I'm not taking unnecessary risk. The daily, right here we have a daily candle in control, so it is very bearish on the daily. Look at that, very little wick. That's a really good sign. Previous daily high, really good sign that we're going to keep going low. When the daily opens, we can only probably a wick, is usually what happens. Then we start to continue going down. Now if this weekly engulfs below this candle, now we could just leave a wick and then go up higher, but the daily time frame is looking really bearish, so it's looking like we might do a daily pullback over here, and that might look like the daily wants to do this. So look, if the daily looks like it made a higher high, higher than this high over here, then we can pull back over here and then maybe look for buys, right? As one, so someone would think, because this would be a demand, right? But I do go based off of the bigger time frame structure over the smaller time. So in this case, it's weekly versus daily. So it's going to be this daily demand versus this weekly structure, which is going bearish. and then the daily is bullish. So I'm looking for sells for the most part because the weekly is telling me we're heading to this lower low. Now, that's just the selling pressure that we're coming off of this key level, which is the support and resistance area. You can see here we have touch, multiple touches here, support here, wick that holds here, and then also having the initial rejection there. So we have two reasons why we're getting selling pressure off of here, because we're coming off of that supply, also this resistance, and also, never mind, we actually not two, but we actually have three. The third one is because we made a higher high. So naturally, when we're making higher highs and higher lows, we're retracing and making higher lows. So every time we make a higher high, it's going to most likely pull back to a higher low, unless we have a break structure, of course. So because we made a higher high here, that's another reason why we're getting selling pressure, so it can come back down here to the daily demand. So that's what I'm expecting for this pair on AC to go bearish this week. Lots of momentum, so let's just take advantage of that and keep selling until it tells us not to sell. And the next area of concern is here, so be on the lookout for that. That's AC. EU top down analysis again. Okay, so we have made already a daily higher high, as you can see. Then we have all of this internal structure. Now in my last video, if you check it out, I called out that this is most likely a trap. So even though this looks like an internal supply, I had multiple confluences tell me that we're most likely going to make a higher high, and that's exactly what he did. But now that we did that, so check that out. You know, you can see that I called that live in my other video, so check that out on my YouTube. This was a trap. I was able to call out that we were going to make a higher high. It makes a higher high, and now we're reacting off of my resistance and my supply. Now let's go check that out and go to the weekly time frame. So on the weekly, so this is actually my monthly structure: a swing high, swing low, higher, lower high, lower low. Now we come into the supply and key resistance area. So look at how that selling pressure comes in here. We have a weak bullish candle, really bearish. A lot of bears came in after touching that, so that tells me, hey, even if we do want to go deeper into this supply up here, what can the daily be doing? The daily can be doing this. If we just made a higher high, this could be heading to a higher low on the daily, but we do have to be very considerate of the 1 hour. So we're going to go down to the 1 hour. And here you can see that we have 1 hour structure. So we have higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. We have a new structure high. So let's go ahead and show that right there. There we go, higher high. Now we're coming down to a higher low. Now last week I was looking for a counter trend trade that I did not get. So right here, lower low, lower high, lower low. And I was looking for a sell up here to sell to this demand. Didn't get right to my area, so that's okay. I don't have FOMO, which is fear of missing out, which I will be making a video on that, because in the past I would have that. I would try to be catching every single trade, but I don't do that anymore. I've done a lot of things to correct that error in my psychology. But yeah, we're now tapping into this demand. Can we buy from here? Well, yes, it looks like we were slowing down towards the end of the week, coming into this demand. We do get a decent amount of buying pressure here. Now we look at the 4 hour. I do like the way this came down bearish, telling me we can go down a little bit lower. We still have enough momentum to maybe bring this down a little bit more, and then maybe I can look for an entry here. So that's kind of what I might be looking for this week. Now, why I said kind of is because if this continues to go down really bearish, like if Sunday and Monday we just coming in really bearish into this, and we start getting bearish engulfings into this demand really deep, like down here into these areas, then there's a chance we can be heading to where the daily demand, which would be like this. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for. EU, I'm looking to potentially buy here if it gives me my signal. Now, as a professional trader, and I currently am funded with Top Tier Trader, and I have been funded with I've been funded twice with Top Tier, and then once with Alpha Trader. Now Alpha Traders did do me 30, but I will do a video on that some other time. But right now, let's keep the main focus on this. Buying here, maybe buy down here, depending if it comes down too bearish here. So EU's looking really good. Let's go look at that weekly candle. Oh yeah, we already showed that. That's the one that was closing with a big wick. That is telling me that we're probably going to go lower this week. So then that tells me how this would actually be a confluence for a sell. That's going against his buy. But there could be internal confluences, like a daily engulfing in this area would be a really good sign that we're going to be heading back to these highs. So it's all about being patient and waiting. And if you join my Discord, I will probably send it on this one. I won't send the signal, but I'll send my trade idea, and then you guys can look to enter yourselves. But I will send the trade idea when it gets near my entry for EU. Okay, so now let's go to gold. Gold looks 10 out of 10 for this next upcoming week. It's just looking so good. This daily and the weekly, we have two great confluences. These are some of my favorite trades because they're high probable trades, and these are just the ones they have become very repetitive because they just always happen. So right here we have a weekly candle in control. So we're just really bullish, so I can expect the next candle to go above here. Now my target for gold is going to be a psychological number of 3750, which would be around this area. That's going to be my target for this next week. Next 1 to 2 weeks. It could be this week, it could be bullish this next upcoming week, and then bullish on the next week. So in the next 2 weeks it could be bullish. Now on the daily, we have a daily engulfing. Now this is a key confluence telling me, hey, we're most likely heading to this higher high. So I'm going to take advantage of this, and now I'm going to look for a smaller time frame entry, dive into the smaller time frame, and then dissect it and see where I can look for an entry, because I use the daily and weekly for directional bias. Now once I form my directional bias and I know that we're most likely heading to this higher high, targeting a psychological number of 3750, then I can look to buy in a smaller time frame. So let's dive down to the 4 hour. So what's happening on the 4 hour? We see we have bullish candles in control. Now if you notice here what I'm about to mark off, so I hope you guys take a little guess in these 10 seconds I give you to think what it is. It's a break of structure. Now let's go down to the minute 30 so you can really see this. So on my 1 hour time frame, we have a swing low. So higher low, higher high. We pull back into the demand, making a potential low, higher low. Now that's only confirmed when we make a higher high, but internally we're pulling back, making structure on the way down. Then we have a lower low, lower high, lower low, and then we have a higher high. Now that tells me we're no longer downtrending in the internal structure, and we have a daily candle in control, which is telling me, like I said, we're heading up to this high. Very likely that we're heading to this high in this next week. We have a break of structure, so I'm gonna wait for a pullback to this area and buy, and my demand is right here. I'll spot it out for you guys. This is my demand within a demand, right? So this is my overall demand, and then we have the new demands forming internally. So I'll look to buy in this demand is where I'm going to be looking to buy. Buy there, stop loss below there, and then target just above previous liquidity, which is here, which that's my first target. So my first target, if we pull back right here to this demand, then I have 3 targets. I have my first target right here, just making a higher high above this, following this internal structure. We have the higher high of the overall 1 hour structure, and then we have the higher high, which would be targeting that psychological number. So any of those are very acceptable targets. I'll target any one of those, and if it shows me, like if I'm targeting 750 and we have a, we make a higher high here and it doesn't quite make it up there, and the daily is closing weak bearish, then I'll look to get out, consider getting out in those areas. And yeah, that's all I'm looking for this week. Looking for buys all this week for gold. No sells at all for gold. I'm just looking to buy with the trend, with the overall trend. That's gold. Now GJ, now I think this is the last one. Yep, this is the last one. GJ looks like we had a fake breakout. So I've been saying we've been ranging in this area for a while, and then we have a fake breakout. Now why I say it's fake, because I would think it was going to go higher, and I still think it's going to go higher. Like we're still heading to this area, but if we look at the 4 hour, so right here on this time frame, we're going to go to the 4 hour. Before, we don't have no candles in control that I like. Now that here we only the only thing we have good to go off of is the 4-hour structure. The 4-hour structure is key here. Higher low, higher high. All of this is noise, very choppy, consolidating, ranging market here. Like I said, I was waiting for a breakout. Now we do have liquidity below these lows, so I would love if this were to come down. Now this might take a while to come down here, you know, maybe have some structure on the way down. I would love to buy down here if it gives me an opportunity down there. Now if this for some reason just buys off of anywhere in these areas, then I'll look for a buy here like this. I'll wait for a higher high, pull back, and then buy. That's the only two ways I'll buy. If it comes down here into this demand, I'll buy, or if it makes a higher high, comes into the new internal demand, and I'll look for an entry there. Overall, where is this pair heading on the bigger time frames, which is daily and weekly? Let's go look at it. We're heading to this weekly higher high. We have the weekly structure, higher low, higher high. We pull back into this demand, and then we form internal structure. We have another demand here that's no longer relevant because we made what? A new higher high. This was the previous demand. We come into that demand. We don't break structure. We make a new higher high, forming a new demand, and then now we can look to buy. So that's another thing that could happen. Say we were to come super bearish into this internal demand on the 4-hour that we just went over, then I can maybe see that it's coming down super bearish and maybe be able to predict that it's going to have a break of structure and head to this bigger time from demand down here, and then we buy down here to this higher high. That is everything for this weekly outlook. If you guys like what you're seeing, subscribe, follow, because every Sunday I will be dropping a video on weekly outlooks, and then throughout the weeks, if I have good trades or a good lesson, then I'll post that as well. Like and subscribe and follow for more. Thank you guys.